Welcome to Dow's Weekly Digest, your Chief Storytelling Officer for Financial Markets here. So glad that you could make it this week. You know, we've kind of had quite a week, and I think quite a month coming here. That being the case, I had a recollection. You know, in the country that I was born, in Panama, this month in particular is very, very special. It is called Mes de la Patria, the month of patriotism. You see, in Panama, they have 5 holidays. They were independent from Colombia, and then Spain, and then they have a Flag Day, and they have a 4th of July, and one other one. So they have 5 holidays celebrating the freedom and patriotism of that country. Some of those things I think would be kind of nice to spill over for us here in the good old USA in the month of November. So besides just the Thanksgiving itself, maybe the opportunity to rethink of yourself, your business, and of course our country. And that's kind of the springboard of the theme that I'd like to do this week. Let me ask then a couple questions. And I would really enjoy it if you'd use the comments section below and let me know. Give me your feedback. I'd love it. First question. Do you believe that you can increase your level of success and personal satisfaction? Do you believe that? With that definition of success and personal satisfaction being yours, not being chosen by me or anybody else. Yours. Do you believe you could increase that? Then the next question I have, and this one is very, very important. Folks, I've applied it in my life and my life's journey. And you know, when I've got off the trail, and sometimes, man, I've been in another county, I was so much off the trail. When I kind of get back, compass-wise back, this question has really been helpful to me. How would the person I would like to be do what I'm about to do? Very simple. And you can pass it on to your kids, your grandkids, and of course apply it to yourself. How would the person I would like to be do what I'm about to do? Okay, you got those 2 questions up there. Again, feel free to use that comment area there. Before we get into that a little further, I have a couple wonderments here. One that I came across was this, folks. They're using artificial intelligence for the COVID. I could call on the phone, and if I have a cough, I could be coughing, and it's going to diagnose from that cough whether or not I have COVID. It's at the early stages, of course, but who knows if that would actually be to apply or not. Kind of a wonderment there, folks. Another one is this, an instant COVID test. Now, sometimes you have to wait and different things, but this is an instant one. And yours truly has tried it. And I'm going to share this with you kind of in the vein of the humorists and the speakers of the following. Mark Twain, Will Rogers, and George Carlin. Okay, so have your pencil ready, and here we go. First, get yourself a good bottle of wine. A good bottle of wine. Now, I don't mean like the old drive-in type wine, T.J. Swan or Boone's Farm. Get yourself a good bottle of wine. Doesn't have a screw off top. It's actually got a cork, folks. Okay, so get yourself a good bottle of wine. Here we have a good bottle of Cabernet here. Okay. So when you think you might have that and you want this instant test, pour yourself a glass of that good wine. And then, folks, take a sniff. Can you smell? That's one of the questions, isn't it? Can you smell it? Can you get the bouquet there? Okay. Well, the next step, folks, is what? Take a drink. Can you taste it? Can you taste it? Excuse me, I can't let it go waste. Ah, yes, I could taste it. That test, like other tests, folks, is only good for that particular point in time. You know, the other night I had to do the test 19 times. And I think I'm going to have to do the test again today because I woke up with a heck of a headache. One of the possible signs, and I just think I'm going to have to do it again. But an instant test for you there, folks. I hope you again had the pencil ready that you can do that instant COVID test there. Not really. Folks, it was cranberry. Believe me, it was cranberry. In fact, let me go to the side here. All right. Ocean Spray. Top of the line, just like the wine, but it was cranberry juice. How would the person I would like to be do what I'm about to do? The theme then being rethink. Rethink what? Yourself, your business, and our country. But first, let's look at a little cowboy wisdom. And you know, Will Rogers was an Oklahoma cowboy. And this has been attributed to Will Rogers. Don't wrestle with a pig. You'll both get dirty, and you'll find out that the pig likes it. That the pig likes it. Will Rogers. You might be a Lutheran. You might be a Lutheran if your son, daughter, maybe nephew, niece, they come home from college. And at the certain opportune time, maybe at the table, they'll say something like, you know that Darwin with evolution, I think he's got something there. I was taking a class. What do you think? Well, then you just kind of sit there a little bit. And then you can say, oofta. There's something to this evolution. If there is, tell me this. So you come right back to him with a question, folks. If there's such a thing with this evolution, why do we still have monkeys? Why do we still have monkeys? And that'll set the old student back a little bit, folks, and make them think. So you might be a Lutheran if kids come home from college and they're starting to ask you questions. Again, I made the connection of Panama and the month of November being what? Freedom and patriotism. We can carry that forward a little bit to South Dakota trivia. How does our national anthem have roots in South Dakota? You know, that song that we sing started as a poem and written by Francis Scott Key during the War of 1812. Yet, as I said, it's got roots in South Dakota as a national anthem. Not too far from here is Fort Meade. Now, Fort Meade was established in 1878. The 8th Cavalry was garrisoned there, and it was to protect the settlers and the, excuse me, the wine's getting to me, to protect the settlers and the gold prospectors. Well, one of the commanders during that time period, Colonel Caleb Carleton was his name. He was then assigned to be the commander of Fort Meade. So he gets to Fort Meade, and with it, he brings kind of a personal mission. You see, he had observed that when there would be some really fancy functions, ambassadors from different countries, they would have their national anthem played. And at that time, good old USA didn't have a national anthem. So when they got to Fort Meade, him being the commander, he, with his wife Sadie, said this as an order. We will do retreat at 1700 hours. When we do retreat, we will play the Star-Spangled Banner. You see, they felt that when that poem song was written during that war and the respect that the words did for the country and the flag, that it was apropos to use that particular song. So, him being the commander of that fort, 1700 hours, the band played the Star-Spangled Banner. Besides the military that was there, if there was any civilians on base, they would stop, be at attention, and remove their hat and face where the flag was or the music. Well, folks, that respect and that tradition that they had started, it started to spread. New York Times picked it up, and they started to report on that it looked like there in little Fort Meade, South Dakota, they were starting to start a national anthem. And in fact, the governor of South Dakota let other governors know. And the colonel, he wrote the Secretary of War and let him know what he was doing. The Secretary of War then guided and instructed other forts and military bases to do the same. And so it started to spread. It wasn't, though, until 17 years later, John Philip Sousa got on the bandwagon, and with that push, the Star-Spangled Banner became our national anthem. And so now we stand for the national anthem. We stand with respect. We stand with a salute, much as those soldiers and civilians did at the 1700 hour in little Fort Meade, South Dakota. I thought that was really fantastic South Dakota trivia that I found there. I had a training exercise that I had to do, and the gentleman got the use of Fort Meade for us to do this training. And when I got there early, there was like a small museum there, and there was a plaque there, and it went through this story. And I didn't know that at all with Fort Meade or our national anthem either. I just took it for granted that we've always had our national anthem. Wasn't the case, folks. Right here, South Dakota trivia. Well, what does the Bible say about how would the person I would like to be do what I'm about to do? And when I get in a sense of a habit that I'm doing this, then I get in a stage the Bible would call the abundant life. And that's what I want to share. It's John 10:10, and Jesus is talking. So he says, "The thief does not come except to steal and to kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life, and that they may have it more abundantly." Now that word abundantly, the Greek word is perison, P-E-R-I-S-S-O-N. And it means really exceedingly. So he's saying abundant life, exceedingly life. Life beyond our imagination. And abundantly isn't meaning material things, folks. It's again that sense of well-being that you attain there. John 10:10. How would the person I would want to be do what I'm about to do? Let me share with you a tool. I like the tool because it keeps it in a simplicity form. So this old brain can remember it. It's called the acorn principle. This is, you can see, an acorn. See that there? So keep that in mind as we get talking here. You know, your greatest, fastest, and even easiest growth area is always going to come from your natural abilities. You are this little acorn. I'm this little acorn. And if you look inside, you're going to be able to discover and see your being. Now the challenge, however, is that you accept that you are this acorn. And let's discover the seeds of that acorn. Now when we say an acorn, a lot of times we will then envision a mighty oak tree, as it should be. But you know what the challenge, folks, is? A lot of times ourselves and even others will try to model us that which we are not. They will look, or you will look at yourself and say, boy, this is a challenge. I look out there and there seems to be other trees. There's the big redwood. I think I want to be a big redwood because that seems to be a lot better than this acorn. And so we model the redwood. In fact, sometimes our parents, our other teachers, things of this, they will also try to have us model, which we are not to be. And that can really be a struggle as we go through life. Getting down to the fastest and the easiest way to grow is look at what you're built to be. You'd never find me in a big and tall catalog as a model. It's not going to happen, folks. So I say look at your true nature of yourself in 3 areas. Intellect, your values, and another V word, your velocity. What has nature, the good Lord, given you? And what I mean by the intellect, just in basic word, your smarts. When your old brain starts to look at the what's and the how's, how do you take care of that? How does your brain that God give you work on those things? The values. Think of the values as your heart. Your heart. Your values. Actually, folks, let it do the leading. Let your heart do the leading. Your head will answer the what and the how. Your heart will answer the why. When I got off the path, it was because I wasn't listening to my heart. I was listening to my head and wanted to get things done right away. So I did a shortcut. Okay? That can cause sometimes troubles. The last part I speak of is the velocity. What I mean by velocity is maybe the speed at which you look at a task, let's say, and it's from start to the goal. What is your velocity? And you know what? Everyone's got a different velocity. Here's a real quick example of velocity and the differences of those. Let me draw this for you. This is very basic, folks. What you see there, believe it or not, this is a turtle. And the turtle is moving this way. On top of the back of the turtle is, that S stands for, a snail. And behind it is, man, to the snail, the velocity is what? So fast that the snail is saying, whee! To the snail, the velocity is supersonic. Everyone has their own velocity from the start to the goal itself. Some will take take for example my son. He's a graphic designer, and sometimes at his early stages I would ask him how he's coming on the project, and the project wasn't due, let's say, in a week, and I'd check ahead of time. The same phrase, I'm working on it. Then the intensity would pick up. Just before it was due, maybe, those guys had worked 24 hours working on it. But boy, before that, they were formulating ideas, I guess you'd say. But to me, nothing was put down. I was at a different velocity. In my analytical style, I needed production, and they were doing more logical things. So everyone has their own velocity, folks. Those 3 things: intellect, your smarts, your values, listen to your heart, and what your velocity. And appreciate the velocity of others. In this life's journey, as you look at those 3 things, always consider this too, folks. Make time for what you love to do. Because you know what? There's going to be an overflow. There'll be an overflow of that feeling that you get from doing what you love to do, and that's going to carry over to the other life's tasks that you have to do. So you get big dividends from make time to do what you love to do. So then you're going to be able to live abundantly, as the Bible tells us. I'd like to share with you some market potentials. And some of this is very recent information. And I'd like to interject this. Please contact your internal wholesaler. One of our premier carriers, One America, is doing a leading series in which they are bringing some major speakers in. And they've just done one, and this speaker was a psychologist dealing with the aged. He had done some studies or participated in some studies, and I'd like to share some of these things with you. That we are going through a longevity revolution. Not an evolution, but a revolution. The life expectancy of those 65 and that, he says you can probably add at least another 20 years. Before that, he goes through graphs and history like that. That wasn't the case, folks. Think of that, 65 and you add another 20 years to that. He brought the example of John Glenn. John Glenn in 1962 orbited the Earth 3 times. Later, he was a senator, and then after that, at the age of 77, he went back into space with the spaceship Discovery. They asked him, John, why do you want to do this? He says, I still have dreams. I still have dreams. He brought up the psychologist that retirement now has a new meaning. It means freedom. The number one concern when they did this questionnaire sampling of the retirees and pre-retirees was this. 72% of them said their number one concern was not to be a burden on their family. Also brought up was they need a guide. They need a guide in these different stages of life of this next 20 years that they're going to be going through, folks. He brought up that there are over 40 million informal caregivers here in the United States. And then he did the comparison of there's usually an average of 2.5 years difference between the husband and the wife. Statistic-wise, the husband gets maybe Alzheimer's or something. He needs long-term care first. And frankly, it shortens her life because it just stresses and works her to death, you might say. To death. Being that one of those informal caregivers there. As I mentioned, folks, he brought up that they use the phrase, they're looking for a guide on this life's past for this last 20 years. Folks, I'm in that group. I know that they need that guide. Let me share with you a couple tools from one of our premier carriers, One America, 140 years old. This first piece is entitled, Helping Guarantee Your Family's Security. And they bring up this, looking out for your family in the long term. But remember, 3 out of 4 don't want to be a burden. They don't want to be a burden. To do that, they're looking to control their care. They want some control over their care. I want control over my care. They want to maintain their independence. You bet I do. They want to protect their family. They don't want to be that burden. And in doing so, they would like to pass things on to their family, so they're looking at preserving their assets. You need to contact your internal wholesaler, ask for that webinar, and ask for this particular items to be sent to you from One America. Another one, they're saying that their care solutions, the products that they have the client, so they have me in mind, along with my family in mind at the same time. So they have benefits beyond the typical long-term care. And it's more than just nursing care. They have premiums that never increase, benefits that never decrease. They have assets that grow at a guaranteed rate. And they have death benefits that if long-term care isn't used, and maybe the cherry on top, they have an option that the premiums could be refunded. All these different features, who do I need to ask? I would suggest your internal wholesaler is the person to ask there. Also, I used the term guide. Customers, the clients, are using that phrase. They have a booklet entitled Step by Step, a Guide to Receiving Long-Term Care. And let me just share with you the outline of it, table of contents. Your future in your care, preparing ahead of time, managing your choices, when care is needed, what to expect, after care begins, the family dynamics, common long-term care terms and long-term care resources. All right here in this one guide. I think I'd be contacting my internal wholesaler and saying, Jason, can you send me some of these? I've got some clientele. And you think about it, we all have clientele. We have our own clients. We have our clients' parents. We have our clients' grandparents. We have all of those clientele, those potentials, folks, that are looking to have that abundant life, and you're able to help them with the help of One America there. Rethink your business. In doing so, you'll be helping in rethinking our country. How about some recommendations? I have a poem. The poem is called The Thought, and it's attributed to a monk, a Christian monk, and his name was Thomas Merton, M-E-R-T-O-N. The thought manifests the word. The word manifests the deed. The deed develops into a habit. A habit hardens into your character. So watch the thought and its ways with care. The movie I have is entitled The Bucket List. They both were terminally ill. One was a blue collar, the other was fairly independently wealthy. And they were going through cancer treatment, and they decide to reach for that abundant life by going through the bucket list. Kind of a cute little movie there. The book, it's entitled The Acorn Principle. The author is Jim Cathcart, and Jim goes through much more detailed the little outline that I did already on the principle itself. I think you will enjoy it on what? Know yourself, grow yourself. It's an excellent, excellent book. The power phrase goes like this. If you grew to become old, and as you grew old, you became sick, maybe even disabled, which might you lose sooner? Your home or your mortgage? Your home or your mortgage? And that's what your family. The video comes to us, folks, from One America. Maybe to rethink. I said what? Rethink your business. Maybe you feel uncomfortable talking with folks on long-term care needs. I think this speaker, she's going to then enlighten us on different avenues. They have different options as we look at maybe their existing assets. As you look at what category their existing assets might be, they have an avenue that you can help the person. You can what? Guide them. You can guide them. So I think you're going to like this video.
The One America Care Solutions line, the nice part about it is there's options for everyone. The creators have been very innovative to come up with solutions that fits depending on the client's age, maybe their health, or their funding option. Such as we have a joint contract, we have a patent on that, and the advantage is to make sure that two people are covered with one's dollars. That's a big deal. Another option would be using qualified dollars, retirement dollars, 401ks, 403bs, IRAs. Many people have these types of dollars because that's how we save, is through employer-sponsored plans. So it's nice to be able to utilize that money and making sure that they have a larger amount, a larger bucket, if ever needed for care. There's also options for folks that maybe they have an income, a pension income, or they're still earning an income, maybe investment income. This allows them to spread out the payment over a period of years, and maybe even on a monthly basis where it may seem more affordable. But the nice part about asset-based long-term care is that if care was never needed, nothing was wasted, because they're still building cash value, and they also have death benefit that if they died with this in force, of course their family or their heirs would receive that. We also have the Pension Protection Act with the annuity care that's allowed annuities to become tax-free if used for long-term care. This option was initially developed because folks had some health conditions, or maybe they were too old to get long-term care insurance. So this allowed them to be able to use this type of asset, get the leveraging to pay for long-term care. But now with the tax law, it's evolved to offer to more people that may have an idle annuity sitting there that they don't plan to use for income. Now they can reposition that and get themselves long-term care coverage. So that's the nice part about One America, is we've really been creative about offering these solutions for the masses. For advisors that are not aware of asset-based long-term care solutions or how they work, for some it may seem like a complex subject, but it's actually a very simple subject, because what asset-based long-term care is, it's using life insurance and it's using annuities with tax advantages to pay for care. So this is in most advisors' wheelhouses. They understand the basics of life insurance and the basics of annuities. So this just allows them to use it tax-free, but then also adding on what would be catastrophic type coverage. My best recommendation for any advisor who would want to implement this into their practice, it's not a silver bullet, but I'll say this: start having the conversation with every client now. I know that many advisors believe that they should maybe be marketing and be sending out postcards and those types of things, but it doesn't have to be that. Just simply having the conversation is the best way to start implementing this into their practice, making sure that every single plan that they're putting into place, they are addressing the need for long-term care.
So did you pick up on the different options, the flexibility, as the asset hit a certain category, whether that be an annuity, whether that be qualified funds, maybe even a dormant annuity that's just going to be set aside for that so-called emergency, and how you could use the leverage to do more of that emergency need that they speak of there. Again, look at your business and see if maybe you shouldn't start looking at that big population group of myself with the help of One America. And remember this, folks: God's plan for you, that special seedling that He has inside you that's growing, God's plan for you, folks, it's great. As Tony Tiger would say, and I can remember eating Frosted Flakes and watching that commercial, and he would come on and he would say, "Frosted Flakes, they're great." And then Tony would jump in and say, "They're not great, they're great." Folks, God's plan for you, they're great. They're great. Just every day that we have that opportunity here of the freedom that we have and the opportunities that we have, indeed, that should just spill over and let us all collectively show the patriotism for the country that we're in, folks. And remember this: blessed are those who ease the pain of misfortune, for they shall be called insurance agents. You take care now. Bye-bye.